Hello and welcome everyone to our today's Connect University. I'm Alex. I will be just merely warming things up for our session towards a new generation of blockchain-based services. As you might know, we started back in 2015 with Connect University, which is the knowledge sharing flagship initiative of DigiConnect, which aims to update both us, you staff, and you, the general audience, about the latest digital trends as well as important digital policies. The scope of our sessions in general is to put at the same table the industry, academia, institutions, international organizations, trying to help find inspiration from one another, as well as try and see future threats in shaping digital policy. Now, for those of you who have not yet joined via slide.do, we invite you to do so using the code blockchain services. I'm saying this because that's the place where you can ask questions, and we will make sure they make their way towards the speakers. Also, if you plan on sharing any insights on social media, please do so using the hashtag ConnectUniversity as well as blockchain services. As always, the recording of the session will be available on Futurium and on the Digital EU YouTube channel. So without further ado, we want to mention this is going to be the last session of the year, but in 2023, we are going to begin with sessions on the disinformation code. So we invite everyone to be there, as well as a session on open internet search. So without further ado, to give you more detailed context on the speakers and why we are here today, Helen Schockman, please.
Thank you very much, Sandro, and thank you for colleagues to be there at the very last session of the Connect University this year. We're very happy to be here and to be able to share with you today a bit on where blockchain-based services, as far as EU have promoted them, are heading, and tell you a bit of the plans of what we're doing next year as well in this area from DigiConnect, together with lots of other colleagues across the Commission services. But today we have a very interesting, I hope for you, agenda. You can see it here in front of you. We have 2 hours in front of us on this topic, and there will be a break in the middle, so you can go and grab a coffee in between. We hope to make this very interactive. That's why we also have introduced Slido with some questions. And we also will give opportunity, obviously, for you to ask some questions in between, and we will take them through the WebEx. So first of all, I will give an introduction to the session. I will speak about that soon. We will have also an introduction to the Web 3.0 and blockchain by Joshua Lul from University of Malta, who is also participating in the European Blockchain Partnership. We then have an update on the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure, EPSI, what the priorities are, what the stage of the project we're in with Pierre Marot in our unit here, DigiConnect F3. And then we have our colleague Caroline Kaibt, who will give an update on a newly launched project that we just started on a regulatory sandbox around blockchain, which is also built on EPSI. And then we have a break, first a Q&A, and then a break. Thereafter, we have verifiable credentials in education, which is one way of using blockchain in a real, tangible, and valuable way on EPSI, which we have presented by Ellen Lerouge and Jean de Cajou from Kaulöven. Thereafter, we have colleagues from the EU Intellectual Property Office, Nicholas Howe, who will speak about a potential use case that we're looking at to use blockchain and the EPSI infrastructure potentially to look at how we can do work on anti-counterfeiting as a use case. And finally, at the end of the program, we have our colleagues from Maxime Len, Lem, who will speak about our very important project and program to onboard users and onboard users for the use cases that we work around European blockchain services infrastructure and the communication we do around that. So we have a slide, I think, that shows all the speakers that will come up. Next slide with the faces as well and their titles. As an introduction, I think we spoke already here about who these people are, so we will see them very soon in the program. But first of all, I would like to give you just a short overview on what we do in DG Connect as blockchain as a policy initiative. It's based on various different work streams, and you can see them here. We have, first of all, a very important partnership with all the member states, Norway and Liechtenstein, around what we call the European Blockchain Partnership. It was started a couple of years ago as an initiative from DG Connect during the Digital Day with a declaration. And one of the key initiatives here is to develop a European blockchain services infrastructure together with use cases that are of value for public services across border. Then we also have been working closely to support global cooperation on blockchain through industry. And there we have supported the start of International Association of Trusted Blockchain Application, INATBA, which is an industry association working based in Brussels, but working very globally on various different topics and work streams that are important for industry in the area of blockchain. In particular, our interest here is how do you cooperate across borders internationally with blockchain for facilitating interoperability. So there's a very important work there together with that association on standardization and interoperability from an EU perspective. Furthermore, we have set up a think tank that we call the EU Blockchain Observatory Forum, which brings together expertise across the whole world, but also very much based in Europe, global experts and European experts that together pull together information. They co-create information and produce them for everyone's consumption. Basically, this is very interesting thematic deep dives in areas such as energy efficiency of blockchain, how you can use it in different sectors, in health and mobility, for instance, also doing deep dives on areas such as use of digital euro. So very many vast topics you can go and familiarize yourself with on this EU Blockchain Observatory Forum website, and if you are more interested in particular topics around blockchain. Then we are also working on the legal strand, and this is in particular provisions that we now are looking into the Data Act for enabling the use of smart contracts and legality of it across border. Another part that we are currently looking to propose is in the electronic identity EIDAS proposal, the updated one, how we can use electronic ledgers in the same context as qualified sort of signatures. So very much equivalent to that, how electronic ledgers can be of use in this context. And then, of course, we have been supporters and cooperating with colleagues across the board on the marketing crypto assets, which is a more generic regulation for the crypto world, which is now in this current context of turmoil in the market, has been put forward as one of the very forward-looking and appropriate timed regulatory network. Investing in EU research, of course, innovation, deployment, startup, and skill is something that we have in our DNA in DG Connect. We work very closely with colleagues in other units here on research and innovation. and uptake of new technological building blocks for blockchain, such as consensus mechanisms and so on, sustainability of blockchain in R&I. The deployment, we do it through Digital Europe program, and we also have done it in the Connecting Europe facility previously. But the Digital Europe program is now a very, very important support program for the blockchain rollout. We just have had interesting outcomes from calls for proposal here, and projects will start very, very early next year, which will spearhead the deployment going forward. So skills is not to be forgotten. We know that there's enormous skills gap in general for digital technology and uptake to enable the uptake of digital technology, and in particular in blockchain. There's a huge skills gap, and we have there also in the Digital Europe program supported there on the skills angle, how you can insert more curricula for sort of blockchain skills in university, but also in companies, how they can train and their staff and in R&I departments of the companies, how blockchain can support new business models. And last but not least, we do support standardization operability. I mentioned it in relationship with the global cooperation, but we also have an important angle here directly in the liaison with the international standardization organization that works on paving the ground for the global standardization and interoperability, working on things like terminology, but also the architecture and governance and so on. But this is just to give you a very broad overview of what DG Connect is doing, as I said, together with colleagues around this house, but also across the whole Commission, across the board, to promote blockchain policy initiatives, and also in the context, obviously, of our DG's very important Digital Decade program. But now I think that I have taken up enough time on that broad angle, and I would like to dive into some pieces of work now that the colleagues here have prepared to present to you, and I hope that this will be very interesting for you to look at, and listen to, and engage with us and ask questions around. So please, I think now I should hand over to you, Pierre. Excuse me. First, we go to an introduction on Web 3.0 and blockchain more generally, and this is to set a backdrop on where the Web 3 is going. Joshua Elul from the University of Malta, please, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Helen, and thanks to everyone for joining us here. And thanks for having me. So in this introduction, I'm going to talk briefly about blockchain, what it is, and how it can support future EU public services within the context of Web3. And you may have heard about Web3 and how is that different to what we had before. So let's start with Web 1.0. Really, Web 1.0 was about reading information from the web. So these were the initial websites, the initial web pages that were put up there where you could interact with and get some information from them. It was really a lot of one-way interaction. So this is a primitive Yahoo page, the first Pizza Hut page. In fact, pizza was the first item ordered online, and America Online, you may have remembered it. But a lot of these pages really involved one-way direction from the server to you. Okay, yeah, Pizza Hut, you could send in an order, but still it's very focused on service provider to you, read only. And if we back then wanted to provide some information to other individuals out there, it required that we set up a web page somewhere. So we'd upload our information onto a web page, onto a server, and then individuals around the world could see that information by going to the particular web page. So it was very read-only. Web 2.0 really brought this new paradigm of both being able to read and write to the same platform. So if you think about things like Facebook, we now use these different platforms where we both share our information, we read information, but we have the power to write to the platform and have other individuals around the world interact with that information. And the same with YouTube and videos and Medium. So this was really the platform area, which more was about dynamic interaction rather than just one-way interaction. But what's important to note in both the Web 1.0 and the Web 2.0 era, the information is always at the service provider. So the service provider is playing a very important part over here where they store all the information and they also have ownership of the logic. Now, when we're talking about Web 3.0, the idea is still to have read-write. And even when we move from Web 1.0 to Web 2.0, it doesn't mean we completely get rid of all Web 1.0 services. And just right now, we're moving towards Web 3.0. We're not going to get rid of all of the Web 2.0 services. We're building on it and adding functionality to now have these new types of services that in Web 3.0 is about read-write like before, but now the ability to own and control your own data and the processes that govern that data. So that's really the difference. We're removing the information from the service provider and giving ownership to users of the data and the processes. So that's great. That's what we want to achieve. But how can we actually achieve this? Let's take a step back and just look briefly into how computing systems have worked so far. Really, whenever we speak to a web server or any system, we have to go to that particular website or web page or interact with the system, however it is that we interact with them. But at the end of the day, there is a company, there is an entity, there is a single individual potentially, an IT manager who has control of the system, whether it's a single computer system or many different computer systems working around the world to provide the service. And this individual or this company, this entity has the ability to change information, to delete information, to even change the processes that are being run on that system. So when we're using any social media platform, they have the ability to change the processes as they deem fit because it is their system at the end of the day, right? And this could be the company, it could be employees within the company, it could even be, unfortunately, hackers who get access to the system who manage to either see or manipulate that data or even manipulate the process. And this is possible because this is how computer systems have worked since the beginning of computing systems till really the 2010s. They're really focused about single centralized computing systems. And if you control it, you can do whatever you want with that data and the logic. So how are we going to move towards this new reality of having more ownership of the data and the process? And this is where blockchain comes in. Now, blockchain is a mechanism that allows for different computers around the world in different jurisdictions to work together to provide some service in a manner that is tamper-proof. And this may immediately put you off guard and say, oh no, this is crypto. Blockchain is not crypto. Cryptocurrencies was just one type of application of blockchain, and we can use blockchain for more. And it's great because especially right now, it's not a great time to be in crypto, right? But blockchain is the mechanism underneath cryptocurrency that allowed for us to move towards this new paradigm of ownership of data and processes. But let's understand what cryptocurrencies try to do, because that'll help us appreciate what it's proposing within the context of Web 3.0. Whenever you undertake a transaction and you send funds, let's say, to your friend using a mobile app or internet banking, what you're really doing using that app is under the hood, it's sending a message to your bank when you want to send funds, and the bank is accepting or not accepting that transaction and forwarding the funds to your friend. So really and truly, what's happening is you're sending a message to the bank and the bank is undertaking that transfer of funds for you. Now, what Bitcoin proposed, and Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency that came about or was proposed in 2009, 2010. And what it proposed was a mechanism where you could send digital funds to your friend without having any authority having to approve or reject that transaction. So it's kind of was proposing a digital cash system where there's no need for an individual to have to approve or not approve that transaction. Now, that's what Bitcoin proposed. And in order to get there, it proposed the blockchain mechanism. And that is what we are really focusing on now, the mechanism that allows for us to create a system where there's no single central power or authority that is more in charge of the system than any other computer. And the way that it works is that information in the blockchain or information in Bitcoin is stored on every single computer that makes up that network. And really what they're doing is they are together creating a single computer. And that's quite ironic that all of these computers working around the world are creating an abstract single computer that we can all use, yet with the very important difference that no one has control over it. So it will store all the transactions associated with Bitcoin if we're talking about Bitcoin, but now we're talking about new types of digital systems using a blockchain. And it will store all the information associated with that particular system. Now, that application could be Bitcoin. However, just like we have operating systems where we can run many different programs, blockchains can now be used for many different types of use cases, not just Bitcoin. And we'll discuss a few towards the end, leading up towards the importance of EPSI. So blockchain 101, really, it is a lot of different computers around the world working together to provide a single computing system that no individual, no single entity can control. And that's the difference to what we had with other existing digital systems before. However, at the very same time, it allows for users to use the system in the same way as before, but with these guarantees. And it can provide these guarantees that no one can manipulate or no one can have control on the system, because it ensures that the code in these programs, what we often call them smart contracts, the code will do exactly what it's written to do, nothing more, nothing less. Not even the programmer who wrote those smart contracts could go against the rules. So we're removing all possibilities of having anyone who's in more control than the other. And because of this, we can create this idea of a truth machine, where the blockchain guarantees to users that data has not been manipulated in a manner that should not be allowed, and neither should the algorithm or the process be manipulated. Now, blockchain has also received some negative attention, particularly in the fact that it's claimed it's going to consume all energy and it's going to ruin the world. But we need to put this into context. So this is a graph from Ethereum, an Ethereum website, which is a popular blockchain. And I'd like to highlight that, yes, certain blockchains do consume a lot of energy. So one algorithm that blockchain uses is called proof of work. And that's the one that is very energy, requires a lot of energy overheads. And Bitcoin requires 100 terawatts per hour, terawatt hours per year of energy. The old version of Ethereum requires 78 terawatt hours per year of energy. And if we look at this in context, YouTube takes much more, mining gold takes much more. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're seeing the utility of what blockchain provides versus the cost, the energy costs. But that's not only where we need to stop, because there are other types of algorithms that allow for blockchains to operate. There are new types of algorithms, such as proof of stake, that take negligible amounts of energy overheads to run. In fact, the Ethereum blockchain has now moved over to this new algorithm, proof of stake, and if you can see the huge difference in energy overhead. So there are certain types of blockchain consensus mechanisms that do not have this energy problem. So whenever you speak about blockchain, keep that in mind, that it's not necessarily an energy consuming machine that's going to ruin the world. And if we think about this in context, is YouTube going to kill the world because it's consuming that much? Is Netflix and gold mining, is that unacceptable energy overheads? I mean, we really need to think about the overhead versus the utility, right? But even in the case of blockchain, we have more energy efficient consensus mechanisms. And another concern you may have is that blockchain is not compatible with certain privacy requirements. Now, off the bat, when we're creating blockchain systems, we do not store confidential information on them. We only use the blockchain to provide certain guarantees with respect to data and processes, but we still keep confidential information off-chain. So that's the typical rule of thumb. However, at the same time, there are different types of blockchains and distributed ledger technologies. So these are different types of algorithms which try to achieve the same thing. And these different flavors and types of blockchains are trying to get around different problems and come up with new solutions for different aspects. Some are energy costs, some are who can have a bit more control over others, and some are even about looking into, can we have the ability to add data or remove data into a blockchain? So people are working on different types of blockchains, but that is the mechanism that is powering Web 3.0. This idea of giving ownership back to the end users out there of their data and the processing of those of their data and the algorithms. And it achieves this because it uses a blockchain under the hood. Now, just as a use case to motivate where this could be a good use, consider that you go to lectures, you study, and you sit for your exams. You graduate and you celebrate, and you land your first job. You climb the ladder of success, and then you go for an interview for a new job, which is really what you are aiming for. Yet, unfortunately, you do not get this new job. And the reason is because there's someone else who applied who has gone to a prestigious university, and the company didn't even consider you. Now, this individual who went to this prestigious university, unfortunately, he actually didn't go there. He bought a degree online. And you now do not get the job that you are best suited for, right? So this is a problem. This is a problem for you, but it's also a problem for the sector. That the sector is now having certain individuals getting jobs, getting very important jobs, potentially jobs that require certain expertise where they may not necessarily have undertaken the right training for. And that's a problem for society at large. And you can find numerous articles out there of problems around the world of fake degrees and their impacts. So wouldn't it be great if there was a way to provide a tamper-proof system that would allow for us to verify credentials? So which institution gave an individual a particular credential? And does that credential actually hold the value of what it claims to be? So is it really that institution who gave them the credential? And wouldn't it be great if individuals, so the individuals themselves, have some ownership of that credential where it can never be taken away from them? And how can we build this type of system where individuals have ownership of their data and the processes? Well, we just talked about Web 3.0. And Web 3.0 using blockchain can support this type of application where individuals have ownership of their different credentials. And that's what we can implement very soon. There's use cases, we're going to talk about them today. But let's take this a step further. Let's say that instead war breaks out in your country and you need to leave. And you go to a new homeland and you go for an interview and they ask for your certificates. But your certificate was destroyed in the war, and therefore you can't prove that you are the best, whatever it is that you've studied so long to become. So the next step beyond just having verifiable credentials could we also store certificates, the actual certificate, in a tamper-proof manner in a blockchain that is resilient against any geopolitics or crises that may occur. And this is where we could be going in the future as well. But we must think, like, if we're moving towards Web 3.0 web services, what blockchain is going to be powering that web service? Now, there's different blockchains out there. Should we be relying on a blockchain that is made of random individuals around the world? Should EU matters be focused and dependent upon just individuals who are working around the world for a good purpose and potentially dependent on the majority of them? Or should EU remain sovereign to its jurisdiction, where all countries in the EU are working together to provide these services to its citizens? And this is where EBSI comes in. EBSI is an idea where all the different member states provide a blockchain node, and working together collectively, no country, no individual, no company has more power over the other, and together the network will provide blockchain services and these types of applications that do exactly what they're written to do, no more, no less. And there are many other types of applications that we can build using blockchains, and some of them will be mentioned today, such as notarizing documents, protection of IP, procurement. The list goes on, but I would say that's the main message I would like to get across today, that blockchain provides this ownership of data and processes back to the users in the system. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you very much, Joshua. I really enjoyed that presentation. I think it was an excellent presentation of how blockchain has evolved from an early stage to where it's going, and also where our work in EBSI and so on fits in this. I mean, what you talked about there about the verifiable credentials and the work we will come into on EBSI is really about digital assets, isn't it? And that could be any kind of digital asset, and this is such a fundamental building block to the Web 3.0 and Metaverse going forward. So very much appreciated. I'm sure that there might be some questions, and you raised some interesting questions as well in your presentation that we can come back to in the QA. But let's move on. And now it's the turn of my colleague Pierre Marot in DG Connect F3 to speak about European blockchain services infrastructure. Pierre, please.
Thank you, Hélène, and thank you, Joshua, for the very to-the-point introduction. Now we are going to zoom a bit more what is EBSI, but before to move to a more illustrative use case that we implement on EBSI, I can provide a bit more information about the context of this initiative, and in particular, the European Blockchain Partnership. The European Blockchain Partnership is an informal partnership which has been created through a declaration signed by ministry level, which regroup today all the member states plus Norway and Liechtenstein, and Ukraine is now also associated to this partnership as an observer. And the partnership works with the European Commission, with different services of the European Commission, DG Connect, but also Digit. Our colleagues Maxine Lem is from Digit, and the other services of the Commission and other EU agencies are also interested by what we are doing. So through this partnership, we aim to, let's say, take the best of those blockchain or decentralized or distributed technology in order to provide enhanced services, targeting at first public services, cross-border public services, but what we are going to provide to EBSI, of course, is not only for administration, it's something which concerns the citizen, which concerns the enterprises. Next slide. So just to summarize the vision of the partnership for this European blockchain service infrastructure is supporting the public service in their transition towards a new web era, which have been introduced by Joshua. And again, I insist that if the focus is on public services, it doesn't mean that there is no interest for what concerns the private sector, what concerns the citizens. So you will see in the different following presentation that there are already actors or stakeholders of what we do in EBSI. Some key principles. What we are doing is not blockchain for blockchain, is really to take the best of those technologies. And Joshua was right to clarify what is the blockchain technologies or versus the crypto, let's say the cryptocurrencies, which is one specific application of blockchain, and not to mix the two, because what we expect to do in the context of this initiative is really to provide for enhanced services based on decentralized model for the citizen and for the businesses, and also for the administration or public authorities when they have to interact together or with citizens or with enterprises. We aim to reinforce in doing so the trust that we can have in those services and also the resilience of those services, which is something which is also important, in particular in the current context. We want to propose solutions which are privacy and sustainable by design, and very often blockchain technology has been considered as a bit in opposition to those concepts of privacy and sustainability. But Joshua already introduced the fact that it's not the case, and what we are doing in the EPC is really to be sure that we propose solutions which are sustainable and which respect privacy. Also, to think from the very beginning about cross-border and pan-European services, and to ensure that we have something that from the very beginning, from the outset, we will provide for interoperable services. Of course, in support of EU policies and in compliance with EU regulation. And finally, what we do at pan-European level is to have an infrastructure which is EU governed, which is open to different type of application, but relying on an autonomous type of infrastructure with node control by different public authorities all across Europe. So that's really what makes this initiative quite unique. Next slide. So I will be quick on that one, but simply to remind that our blockchain philosophy, or our philosophy when we want to use blockchain technology is not to use blockchain for blockchain, but it's to take what is good, what is interesting as a new paradigm introduced by those technology. I say blockchain, I could say Web 3.0 type of technology, and really to try to implement them, but in a way which is innovative. We introduce a lot of innovation with this project, but which is also acceptable. We are not here to disrupt completely the way the public services are organized in Europe, but simply to make the best of innovative aspects introduced by those Web 3.0 technology. Next slide. So you will see a bit further with, in particular, the presentation on the diploma use case by Una Europa colleagues, how it works, but not everything is put on the blockchain, but we introduce various concepts related to a decentralized model. So one is about verifiable credential, which is one concept where we rely on the work of the W3C, which is a new way to exchange electronic document where that is very difficult to fake, and which can make the verification quite easy. We do this process by putting the user, the citizen, at the center of the game, letting him through his digital wallet to choose which type of information he wants to share with different let's say, organization, and facilitating all the verification process and reinforcing the trust in all the system by relying on blockchain, which is operated as part of the EPC. Next slide. So just to give a first glance of the different type of use case that we aim to implement on the EPC. So what concerns the verifiable credential, you will get very soon a demonstration, a presentation and a demonstration about how does it work. So we have started in particular in the context of education credential, but this model can be applied to a wide range of different credentials. We are also engaged with our colleague from DG Employ about how to use it in the context of document which concerns social security for mobile workers. Of course, tracking and tracing products through their digital product passport or other NFT or tokens which can be related to the product is something which is important. It will be the subject of the second presentation by our colleagues on the EU IPO. In relation of this tracing capacity, we have the management of intellectual property. It will be also illustrated by the EU IPO use case. And we are also thinking about specific application which facilitate or make more resilient or robust or trustful the exchange of information between administration. So that's the type of the family of use case that we consider at first, but of course there is an overlap between those different use cases. And you will see that we can use verifiable credential in order to propose to facilitate the process of traceability, and this traceability can concern IP management. In doing so, we also contribute and prepare also for the regulation concerning the electronic digital identity regulation, the new proposed regulation. An EPSI could be a way to provide for electronic ledgers that can be used as a trust, as a new trust services, as it is introduced by the proposed regulation. And of course, when we discuss about and when we implement digital wallet in the context of EPSI, we also contribute to the work done by our colleagues in relation to the member state, to the EU digital wallet. And the fact that, as announced by Hélène earlier, today or yesterday, the first batch of projects concerning both EU DI wallet and EPSI, which have been selected as part of the Digital Europe program, will help a lot to progress and to reinforce the link between the two initiatives. Next slide. Just as a big opportunity for us, to mention two big opportunities for us starting from next year. I mean, next year is a year of European Year of Skills, and we want to take this opportunity that to make 2023 the first year where we can implement at scale the concept of verifiable credential apply to education, but also it could be then transposed to lifelong learning. And for that, we have quite ambitious objective to onboard a significant number of university leveraging on the work that we have already done. And we want also to accelerate on the traceability type of use case, in particular also to make EPSI to contribute to the European Green Deal through as a solution to implement the digital product passport. So that's two important, let's say, major opportunity for Europe that to which we can contribute to this EPSI project. And my last slide will be about the roadmap, simply to note that after a few years of development and testing and first implementation, we are now at the end of 2022 and ready for deployment in production, so which will happen in 2023. And from 2023, thanks to the new project of the Digital Europe and other, we will accelerate on the deployment of use case and the scale up of EPSI. And we plan also to create new legal structures that will facilitate this future deployment at scale through a new instrument which is proposed as part of the Digital Decade program. And I will stop now.
Great, Pierre. Thank you so much. It's a lot of information there. I understand. Also, we have embarked first a presentation, so we'll come back to this. But I would just, I think we should keep moving on because we have a Q&A after, and explain a bit more how we use this European blockchain services infrastructure also in regulatory guidance. And I mean, I mentioned in my presentation earlier that we try to put in place a legal framework that enables the deployment of blockchain. And actually this European blockchain partnership has acted as a sort of a regulatory sandbox in the sense that we also have tested these services, how they comply with things like privacy and in particular GDPR. And our colleague who speaks next here, Caroline Kaib, has been very much involved in that exercise. And it was not easy, but we have gone through that. And I think we have a very good outcome with the discussions we've had on that particular regulation. But we're not stopping there. We actually want to use this EPSI to go further in the regulatory compliance and also help startups understand how blockchain technology in general and blockchain-based services that they will deploy is compliant to the regulatory framework and the context they work in. So we will use EPSI, and we have put in place a regulatory sandbox for this. This will now be explained by Caroline Kaib, our colleague in DG Connect. And please, Caroline, you're online, so the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Helen. If I may ask that you would actually be able to pull up my slides. Very sorry.
Yes, we can do that.
That Thank you so much. So I wanted to opportunity to talk briefly about one of our other initiatives at the European Commission that is closely linked to and is building upon the EPSI, the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure, that my colleague Pierre Moreau has already explained in quite some detail just right now. Like with any innovative new technologies, blockchain and DLT, decentralized ledger technologies, raise a number of novel regulatory and legal issues. And one tool to actually look into these new novel legal issues in the context of these innovative technologies being deployed, developed and then deployed into the market, are regulatory sandboxes as an experimentation facility, an experimentation framework. These sandboxes have been used quite a bit successfully, mostly in national contexts, to provide a live test environment for innovative technology solutions, primarily in the financial sector, but increasingly also in other industry sectors, like, for example, health and energy. So the idea behind a sandbox is to bring together all interested parties, namely regulators, companies, often startups, scale-ups, and technology experts to actually test these technology solutions within a safe environment in cooperation with relevant regulators, with the goal to identify regulatory obstacles for the deployment of these technologies into the market. So the goal is to provide a structured dialogue for these sandboxes and thus remove legal uncertainty for innovators, and also at the same time increase the technological understanding of regulators as a basis for possible regulatory adaptation moving forward. Next slide, please. This is the foundation of an idea that led to an initiative that aims to build a that is building and setting up a pan-European sandbox for blockchain technology. As I mentioned, this EU-level initiative is building upon national sandboxing experiences with the goal to promote regulatory dialogue and increase legal certainty for use cases deploying blockchain and DLT. The goal of this particular sandbox is to actually take the experiences from the national level and projecting them onto a pan-European sandboxing framework that will enable us to coordinate sandboxing across borders for use cases that are cross-border and across sectors, with a focus on blockchain. Next slide, please. This is particularly important as an initiative, considering how blockchain, which, as we all know, has originally been developed and deployed primarily in the financial sector, but is increasingly being used as a basis for technology solutions in a variety of sectors, including energy, public services, as was just demonstrated with the EPSI, healthcare, manufacturing, energy, electricity, Next slide, please. This is particularly true with the increasing role of tokenization. So the digital representation of assets that can then be exchanged in different industry sectors through machine-to-machine or peer-to-peer payments. These new use cases do raise new legal questions. For example, concerning smart contract automation, data protection, given the fact that blockchain is creating a very reliable but immutable ledger, tokenization, and legal issues pertaining to the digital representation of real-world assets, non-fungible tokens, and last but not least, questions of application and interpretation of new regulatory frameworks and standards, like, for example, smart contracts in the context of the forthcoming Data Act, as well as harmonized standards for electronic ledgers under the new digital electronic identity regulation. To facilitate a dialogue between regulators and innovators on these novel legal questions is the main purpose of a regulatory sandbox, and this EU pan-European sandbox for blockchain technologies is aiming to provide such a framework for blockchain technologies, in particular to provide legal certainty for the deployment of DLT and blockchain solutions in line with European standards and values. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, the EU blockchain regulatory sandbox will particularly aim to provide a framework, an experimentation framework for cross-sector use cases. A few examples being in the financial sector, where recently the European Investment Bank issued a tokenized bond, or in the mobility sector, where we have seen an increasing use and also future use of the digital euro, for example, to pay for e-fuel for autonomous cars. To use DLT to buy and sell excess energy peer-to-peer, to use DLT for balancing reserve electricity. And last but not least, the role that DLT and blockchain will play across sectors for the tokenization of machines as a basis for machine-to-machine payments. Next slide, please. To put this initiative for a regulatory blockchain sandbox in perspective of the broader EU initiatives concerning blockchain, you will see that in addition to legislative initiatives and standardization for innovative technologies, like, among others, blockchain and DLT, the regulatory sandbox is considered another key pillar and element to further increase legal certainty for innovators and thus provide an enabling regulatory framework for innovation in Europe. Next slide, please. So what does this sandbox, this EU blockchain sandbox, actually involve? It will be open to all industry sectors. It is currently in the process of being launched with a first call for expressions of interest in early 2023. It is targeted at companies of all scale, meaning larger companies, startups, scale-ups. It will focus on novel regulatory and legal issues across various issue areas as identified earlier, whether it's data protection, smart contracts, specialized sectoral legislation, depending on the industry sector. The structure of the sandbox will be for 3 years, organized in 3 cohorts with 20 companies each. And will be organized and operated by the European Commission with the support of an expert consortium that has been procured and identified and appointed just recently. With this, I would like to conclude making reference again to the European blockchain services infrastructure and its use cases, which will also be participating in this regulatory sandbox and will have the EPSI use cases within this sandbox to explore and provide more legal certainty on legal and regulatory questions as they arise in the piloting phase of the EPSI and its use cases. Before I conclude, I would like to just spend 1 minute on emphasizing what the purpose, what the objective of the sandbox is. The goal is to provide an interface for companies, as I mentioned, of all scales, and to, through the sandbox, provide an intake point, if you so want, for companies that helps those companies and startups to identify relevant legal and regulatory issues pertaining to their particular cross-border and often cross-sectoral use case. And then in a second step, to identify and then connect these companies and use cases with relevant regulators at the national level, as well as at the EU level. This is where the European Blockchain Partnership that Pierre Moreau has mentioned already comes in as a facilitator, if you want, as a bridge to the member states being part of the European Blockchain Partnership, and a bridge and a facilitator for contacts with national regulators. Also, another initiative that is complementary is the EU Digital Finance Platform, which is already up and running for the financial sector as a coordination tool to promote and foster the coordination and exchange among national regulators. Last but not least, the EU Blockchain Regulatory Sandbox aims to collect best practices for the setting up and the operation of pan-European sandboxes, again, building upon the experiences we have made with these experimentation facilities at the national level, and to not only increase legal certainty for innovators, but also to increase the technological understanding of regulators as technology evolves, and as we all know, evolves very, very quickly. With that, I would conclude, and again, I know you will be hearing more about the granularity of some of the EPSI use cases, which, as I mentioned, will also be participating in this experimentation framework. With this, I hand it back over to Helen for further engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. That was that was very interesting. And we're looking much forward to seeing this sandbox take off. I mean, in the beginning of the year, we're doing the setup now, and it will be very interesting, I think, for companies to engage with the sandbox and the regulators here to understand how their businesses are bearing in this regulatory context as well, which is such an important element to be able to have a successful business model. But it's very timely now because we're going into the Q&A. Thank you, Carol, and please stay if you have time to see if there's any of the questions that you and other speakers could contribute to. But first of all, I think I would like to take stock of the poll that we had out in the beginning of the session, which was also to see a little bit about the participant we have. I see something like 100 participants that has answered at least the poll question. Might be more out there actually watching and listening to us. But we had this question, which of the following is not based on blockchain technology? And we had a few options, and it looks like the option Mastodon was the one that prevailed, and that shows a little bit, I think, that there's knowledge out there on what blockchain is about. We do see, however, that EPSI was also 18% voted. It was not based on blockchain technology, which I think we have demonstrated. We will continue to demonstrate that it indeed is a very crucial component of the European blockchain services infrastructure that we build on this technology. So that was an interesting outcome, I think, of that poll. Now back to the Q&A that we promised in the beginning. I think we have a few questions, and I would like to welcome everyone at the panel that would like to pitch in on the answers here to come in. But I think we have them ordered in sort of popularity. And I think that the top one here is that I can see is about how to engage and become partner in these different blockchain initiatives of the EU that we presented in the beginning. And I mentioned a few of them. I spoke about our cooperation globally with the industry, the INATBA, the International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications. This is an association that you can engage with yourself freely. They have you can just go to their website and get in touch with them, because if you're part of that industry, I think it could be interesting to become involved in the work that they're doing on different topics of interest of industry, and also putting out position papers and on various regulations that are being prepared on EU level. So that is an open association and open to become member of for any industry around the globe. We also have the EU Blockchain Observatory Forum, which is also an open forum. Anyone can engage with that. We also have experts that are continuously engaged in producing the different reports. Actually, we just finished one of the versions of this forum and are in the process of launching a new one. So there will be new opportunities to engage with that forum in terms of if you have expertise to contribute with, or if you just want to learn about what the forum produced. And then finally, of course, EPSI. I think that was a particular question here about how you can engage in EPSI, and I think we have answered that also directly in the Q&A chat. I mean, you can, as a node operator, be engaged, but also through as a user, as an adopter of the program. And Maxime will talk much more about this later on. Okay, I think unless there's anything else to add to the engagement, we can look at the other questions. So there's a question about cost. The cost, yeah. So the high implementation cost, is that a burden for private entities to create a blockchain application? And is this different from the government-owned distributed ledgers? I know, Pierre, would you like to answer that one?
But what we can say that yes, indeed, it can be a burden to create a blockchain-based infrastructure for private or even a public entity. It's okay to go for proof of concept for some pilot, but when we want to move at scale, we see that is quite actually it's not so easy, and it's quite difficult. And you need to have the capacity to reach a critical mass, which may be difficult to reach if as a private actors, people hesitate to rely too much on a blockchain which is controlled by a private consortium. And that's one of the reasons why we see that now a lot of private-led initiative in the blockchain seems to go to an end. And this is why also we think that what we are doing in FC, the fact that we have an infrastructure which aims to cover the entire Europe and later on to also, or as soon as possible, also to develop some cooperation or exchange with other initiatives in the rest of the world. But the fact that we have all the member states that could participate and all the players within the member state, we can provide for the right size, the critical mass that we need, and that's why it's not only that we are convinced that it is the right approach, but we see more and more public or private initiative knocking at the door of EPSI for further cooperation. Maxime will address it in one of our slides. But indeed, there are costs. But there are also, it's not only about money, it's also about how to create the trust in the system, which is not such an easy way.
Okay, great. Thank you, Pierre. Another question I see here that has not yet been answered in the chat is about skills. So what particular skills are we referring to that is needed and when you work with blockchain technology? What is indeed the knowledge gap? And I think that maybe, Pierre, you could answer that as well, because you've been involved in the project that calls Chairs, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are different type of skills which are needed, and here we can give a tribute to the different initiatives which have been also initiated by DG Connect. So one of them being the support of advanced digital skills, which call for proposal is currently open, which aim for higher education institution to provide for different programming curricula for developing skills for different key technology, including blockchain, not specifically on blockchain. And what is also important to note is that through this initiative, we invite also the university or higher education institution to, let's say, adopt advanced system to manage the skills and the different diploma transcripts that could be related to that, and with a specific reference to the work that we are doing in EPSI. So that's something interesting to be noted. But it's beyond the technological skills. There are different type of skills depending also about the application. So it could be about also about economy. So there is a wide range of skills which are required, but probably let's say the gap is about the technological one, and also the experience. So there is what you can learn at the university, but also the experience being involved in different projects. And we see that there is always an important, how to say, turnover, but also headhunters which are around this blockchain project. But we have indeed launched in the context of the Erasmus Plus program a blueprint project which aims to identify where are the gaps and how to propose a new program at national level in order to mitigate those gaps.
Okay, great. Thank you. I see more very interesting questions, but we have to leave a few for the end of the Q&A as well. And we did promise you a little break, so we will do that now. It might be a bit shorter than we had envisaged, but let's say we still do 5 minutes. Okay, so we're 15:08, so that would mean back at 15:13. Thank you very much. Let's have a quick take a coffee, grab a coffee, be back in 5. Thank you. Welcome back. That was a short but sweet break, I hope. And we are going to dive directly into the continued program here. And I think what's interesting with this next session is that we're going to get a real example of what we do on EPSI. It's about what was explained briefly by Joshua in the introduction about verifiable credentials, and in particular in education. And in this segment, we will have Hélène Lerouge and Jean Ducajou from KU Leuven. Please take the floor.
Okay, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Jan Ducajou. I'm an enterprise architect at the KU Leuven Central ICT department in Belgium. I will shortly present, together with my colleague Hélène Lerouge, our multi-university use case to exchange verifiable credentials between Una Europa universities. So what is Una Europa? Una Europa is an alliance of 11 universities in different European countries. With 11 universities across 11 European countries, we have over 500,000 active students each year. And every year, the number of students moving between our university increases. To facilitate and promote this mobility within the alliance, our ambition is to create an ecosystem in which all students move seamlessly, virtually as well as physically. One part of this ecosystem consists of the exchange of diplomas and credits between the institutions of the consortium and beyond in a secure and fraud-proof manner. I will outline the most important expectations of an ecosystem for information exchange. The ultimate goal is to offer digital credentials, not just in PDF format, but in a universal, standardized data format. In this way, shared credentials can be processed automatically and faster compared to their paper version. For educational credentials, the European learning model provides a single format to describe certificates of credits, degrees, diplomas, and any other kind of claims that are related to learning. So this European learning model is the enabler of educational credentials. Secondly, we want to empower our students with digital, trustworthy certificates, especially in the context of lifelong learning, but also to promote mobility. It becomes important that students gain verifiable, shareable, and portable records of achievements that enable them to take their valuable credentials on the go for presentations to third parties. These credentials should facilitate the relationship between the student and our universities. We aspire to have happier students through simpler processes and less paperwork. And the final important objective is, in the European context of GDPR, the privacy of our students. Privacy must be guaranteed at all times, with the student able to choose what information is shared with whom, based on the concept of selective data disclosure. All of this must be realized with consideration for our environment. The ecological footprint of the infrastructure that facilitates this must be as small as possible. To achieve these objectives and to create an ecosystem within our universities, providing trust and privacy, the Una Europa Alliance believes a new way of sharing information is needed. The objective of a Una Europa ecosystem for credentials are better covered by what is called the self-sovereign scenario. On the left-hand side, you have the issuer of information. That does not change in the self-sovereign scenario. Universities will be the issuers of educational credentials such as diplomas. The difference with the classical approach is that the issuer will turn this document into a verifiable document and send that document via a trusted channel to a digital user wallet of the holder. The holder, a European citizen, can share from his digital user wallet one or more verifiable credentials with whomever he or she wants. Important in this self-sovereign scenario is that the verification of the information does not require access to the authentic sources. That makes the pattern self-sovereign. The verifier can verify the information on the spot and automatically. This is where the EPSI layer plays a role. In the self-sovereign pattern of information sharing, trust is generated based on three key technologies: verifiable credential, a new way of expressing information, a digital wallet, a new way to interact with citizens, and a blockchain ledger, a new decentralized infrastructure offering a trust model of issuers, data schemes, and a revocation list. This is why, through EPSI, the European Commission enables a new way of sharing information in a self-sovereign way. Very important in this scenario is the digital user wallet, who mediates the user interactions with universities or, for example, with future employers. To give an idea of how the world can be greatly simplified for our institutions and students, we have implemented a use case with a focus on mobility between our institutions. We started our EPSI journey as an early adopter in July 2021 with two universities within Una Europa, more precisely KU Leuven and the University of Bologna. In the first pilot, our focus was on the exchange of verifiable student identity and verifiable transcript of records to support mobility between our universities. In the second phase, our dreams became bigger. We wanted to go beyond the allies. So we extended the Una Europa multi-university pilot with a national Spanish pilot where the Royal Mint of Spain issues verifiable IDs and the University Rovira i Virgili issues verifiable diplomas. The multi-university pilot illustrates the issuance and exchange of different types of verifiable credentials which are exchanged cross-border between three different countries. Let us showcase this. As a prerequisite, the universities need to install an EPSI-conformant enterprise wallet and must be onboarded on EPSI as trusted issuers, accredited to issue specific verifiable credentials. And the students must install an EPSI-compliant user wallet on their mobile phone. We have an extensive demo to showcase this, but today I will show an abridged version. In this version, Eva, a Spanish citizen, already has in her wallet a verifiable ID issued by the Royal Mint of Spain and a verifiable bachelor diploma issued by the University Rovira i Virgili in the Gattaca user wallet on her mobile phone. She now wants to apply for a master in another European country.
The KU Leuven seems like an excellent choice, not only because it is located in Leuven, which is a beautiful city. They also offer excellent education and they offer a simplified application procedure based on verifiable credentials. In the simplified application process, KU Leuven asks to share a verifiable identity and a verifiable diploma as an admission requirement to enroll for a master degree. I scan the QR code to apply at KU Leuven. KU Leuven asks me to share my verifiable identity and my verifiable diploma. I give consent, proof control over my DID, and submit a request for enrollment in the Master Business Information System Engineer in Leuven. I am notified that my request is in process. You see on the website, I shared my identity information and my diploma information. The student administration receives all the information in a standardized format conform the European learning model. What you see on this website is a limited representation of the diploma. The diploma credential provides much more information than what is displayed here. It includes the type and level of qualification awarded, the institution that issued the qualification, the content of the courses and the results gained, but also, for example, the details of the national education system. At the end of the admission process, when I am admitted to and enrolled in a KU Leuven program, I receive a notification that my KU Leuven verifiable academic ID is available in my user wallet. When I go to the details, it is now a KU Leuven European Student Identifier. During my stay at KU Leuven, I'm encouraged to go on exchange to one of our 11 UNA Europa partner universities. I choose to apply for a 6-month stay at the University of Bologna. I will use my KU Leuven verifiable academic ID with my European student identifier in it to onboard at Unibo. This European student identifier supports and eases international student mobility. I go to Unibo's UNA Europa Exchange portal and click the Apply with a verifiable student ID button. A QR code for easy sign up appears. I scan the QR code with my wallet. I'm prompted to select my academic ID of KU Leuven. When I give consent, Unibo will verify that my academic ID is present in a pre-existing list of Erasmus students. Since I'm present in Unibo's list of exchange students, I'm successfully signed into the virtual campus of Unibo. I now can access Unibo services. I can, for example, generate a Unibo student account. The portal will send a message to my home university student email address containing a username and a password of the new Unibo account, which can be used to access services offered by Bologna. At the end of my 6 months period at Bologna, I want a verifiable transcript of records for the courses I attended. I press the Issue a VTOR. A QR code appears. I scan the QR code through my wallet. I'm prompted to select my academic ID. When I give consent, Univo verifies the academic ID, looks up the corresponding student account in the backend system. A transcript of records conform the European learning model is then generated for me, containing the courses I attended and the credits I obtained. The transcript of records is signed by the enterprise wallet of Unibo. I'm notified my verifiable transcript of records is ready to be stored in my wallet. On the web portal, the program, the European Student Identifier, and the courses that I took during my Erasmus period are displayed. I can now share my transcript of record with my home university, KU Leuven. I go back to KU Leuven in Belgium and I share my verifiable transcripts of records with my home university. I scan the QR code with a request to share the verifiable transcript of records and the student identity. I give consent to share the information. The claims are automatically verified and powered by the EPSI network and stored in my student file. So now KU Leuven also has the courses and the credits that I have obtained at Unibo. After 2 happy years in Belgium and Italy, I eventually obtain a master degree and request KU Leuven for a verifiable master diploma. I scan the QR code with my wallet, give consent to share my academic ID, and a verifiable diploma is issued by KU Leuven. This diploma is issued by KU Leuven. It contains all the courses and the grades, also the ones that I obtained at Unibo. Now, based on a Spanish bachelor diploma, a Flemish master diploma, and even credits obtained at Unibo, which future employer in any other country in Europe would not want to hire me? The world is at my feet, my credentials are on my mobile phone.
Imagine using this way of sharing information. The possibilities are many. The student is central and manages his credentials or claims with whomever he wants. Student mobility is improved. This facilitates and speeds up student enrollment, both for the student and the student administrations, for secondary school students, but also institutional or for Erasmus. In the context of lifelong learning, a student can collect micro-credentials across institutions. But this will also benefit alumni who can recharge their diploma or obtain credits. The student can also use a wallet as an alternative access to environments, such as MOOCs, e-learning platforms, educational and administrative applications as well. We believe this ecosystem is the ticket to a better, reliable digital future, and not only in the context of education, but to share and also verify any kind of information. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John and Ellen. That was a very good exemplification of what you can do on AppSy with verifiable credential. I think that also in your presentation, you have answered a couple questions that we saw in the poll coming up. You know, this, and you mentioned it yourself, this could be very much extended to the concept of lifelong learning and any type of credentials that you would have not only in academic situations, but certificates of all kinds that improves your skills along the way of your life. So this is indeed possible, and we would welcome such use cases in the context of AppSy, and they can always contact us in our early adopter program. I don't see any other questions that particularly are related to this right now. So I think that was probably very extensive, the presentation you did, and detailed enough. We see a lot of encouragement in the chat. So thanks again. I think we will, with that, move on to the next point in the agenda and the program. And there we will present another potential use case that we're now discussing with the EU Intellectual Property Office. And we have, I think, Nicolas Howe online that will speak about this potential use case in the anti-counterfeiting arena. Nicolas, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for the opportunity. My name is Nicolas Hove. I'm the project lead at the EU IPO for the Anti-Counterfeiting Blockathon Infrastructure project. As you may have heard in the past, including today, blockchain is a great enabler to better share data and information across all actors. But that is equally true for the supply chain and for product authenticity. In Europe, we also have existing solutions. What we're trying to do with the project I'm going to present to you is an attempt at breaking silos and find solution as an ecosystem using blockchain and AppSy with the involvement of many brand owners, transport and logistic operators, and of course, custom authorities and consumers. The presentation is going to take the time to briefly recap on the project history, EU IPO services, and the project use case. That will naturally lead us to present further the expected functionalities and benefits before finishing with the project timeline. So first, what is really the blockathon in the anti-counterfeiting blockathon infrastructure? Well, long story short, it was a hackathon event that we did back in 2018. It was an inter-institutional collaboration between the EUIPO and different DG of the European Commission, including Connect, and with more than 40 organizations, public and private, local and international, gathered up around 11 developing teams to find the best solution to fight counterfeits. Well, this event is the starting point of our project journey, which required later on to define the use case, create a group of enthusiasts known as the Anti-Counterfeiting Blockathon Forum. Fast forwards 2 years later, the UIPO decided to build a strategic project and create an anti-counterfeiting infrastructure. We have an ambitious timeline. The solution will be ready and available by the end of 2023. If we do reach out the end result by 23, the EU will lead by example worldwide, as it's quite a massive development at scale. That being said, there was a number of challenges linked to this vision, which I'd like to explain you now. Since our first attempt at defining blockchain opportunity in the IP world back in 2018, the IPO has come a long way. And this slide shows you a bit our current and expected offering of blockchain service. First, on one side, we are using blockchain as a means of communication between EU IPO and national IP office to the benefit of IP right holders. This is undertaken by another project, the IP Register on Blockchain, which will replace the old Web 2 or even Web 1 technology standards and enhance the security and the predictability of IP rights to brand owners. Currently, we have 5 member states that have joined this project: Italy, Poland, Estonia, Malta, Lithuania, with promising integration from additional member states, IP National Office. On the other side, we use blockchain to create an authentication platform that can prove authenticity and support enforcement authorities with evidence and information sharing during product journey in the supply chain. The project will leverage the one that I mentioned before, together with other historical databases, to authenticate brand owners as the genuine brand owner holding the product. It will allow an authentication of the product digitally and notarize product shipment history. It will be applicable EU-wide from the start and be capable to connect beyond the EU to other similar systems in place in other parts of the world, such as, for example, some US solutions that are existing. If we look at the different challenges this poses as an ecosystem perspective, track and trace solution should aim at covering the following grounds. First, we need to identify all the people that are supposed to receive, exchange, or own the end product, starting with the brand owners. They are the alpha and omega of product authenticity. They are the one who can tell you whether a product is genuine or not. Second, we need solution to ensure product anti-tampering and anti-counterfeiting features so that the product stays publicly genuine throughout the whole journey. Third, we should establish an information exchange system for all involved stakeholders so that internal preparation to transit or receive the product can happen in anticipation. And this part cannot be exposed to the public. And the brand owner should remain in control of the information shared on a need-to basis based on who should receive the product. Finally, we should be able to create an unrefutable auditable trail of the product journey until it reaches the final destination. And this part can and should link with the last mile and the end consumer delivery. Taking stock on these overall challenges, the UIPO has taken quite some time in refining the overall use case for this solution, which I'm going to present you now. Essentially, what we are saying and what we are going forward with is that the UIPO wants to provide an authentication platform for the rights holder to receive a digital signature in the form of verifiable credentials. This digital signature will be used at 2 levels. The first level is on the product itself. Right holders creates a digital twin of their product with a number of information that they are willing to share with the end consumer or any other parties within the chain. Meanwhile, manufacturers prepare the real physical good and collect the serialization code of the product. The serialization code is then added into the digital twin information, which is then compiled and combined by the right holder to create an NFT which is going to be sealed by this digital signature. The second level of using the digital signature is on the shipment request. The right holder used the digital signature to sign the shipment request, and this information will constitute the first block of the Logistic Open Protocol, effectively starting a blockchain audit trail for the product journey. What is going to happen afterwards in the chain is that every time the product changes hand, the new holder can see it, he can see the digital twin, and can confirm the signature of the right holder. They also have access to the shipment request that has been digitally signed, so they also have tangible information related to the product journey. Before it hands it over to the next product holder, an authorization on the blockchain will occur. And it can go on and on until the end consumer. In the meantime, custom authorities will have access to the Logistic Open Protocol, so they will know in advance at pre-arrival the product place of origin and destination, as well as other data required to green lane product. Even at the inspection for custom agents, like any other holder of the product, they can scan the product, check the digital twin, and confirm the signature of the right holder. As you can imagine, this story also allows for other opportunities that will be reaped by the market in terms of connection between the brand owners and the end consumer if the brand owner decides to share this digital twin, this NFT to the end consumer, creating a bi-channel communication line. That's a bit the overall story of the ecosystem. Let's now have a look at the functions behind the two main components, the identity register on one part and the Logistic Open Protocol on the other part. On the identity part, we will use the self-sovereign identity framework, and we are working with EPSI, as you can imagine, to leverage it during the proof of concept. Now, the great thing about the EPSI verifiable credential mechanism is that it allows the UIPO to become a provider of said credential, but it may not be the only one. In a not so distant future, where every brand owner had a one-stop shop for all their IP rights, you could imagine other players being aggregated in an IP right wallet, such as patent coming from the European Patent Office, geographical indicator from the DigiAgri, or plant variety from the CPVO. This is technically possible. Better even, EPSI could connect with other existing mechanisms in place in the rest of the world and thus connect these IP rights with other existing claims beyond the EU. Now, you can imagine that to scale at this level, this also requires choosing the right standard, which was presented today. EPSI has decided to use W3C, which is also being leveraged in other parts of the world, in the USA, for example, where the US Cross-Border Patrol has a similar development currently ongoing. If we look at the logistic part, essentially, we have two layers of interaction. On one end, we have a peer-to-peer network to exchange the logistic data, so a business logic, if you like. And another one which creates an audit trail of the exchange, which can be consulted by the parties in the chain, confirming that the original shipment request comes from an approved brand owner. That is the blockchain classic notarization logic. Now here, we do not necessarily see EPSI being leveraged at this point in here. And the main reason behind this is that the more blockchain are used for notarizing product journey, the better it will be in terms of throughput and volumes to withstand the millions of transactions that you can imagine would occur if such a type of solution would be uplifted. The most important part, really, however, is to provide the list of the data exchange required for this type of operation, so giving a language. And the project is currently building this element. So how all of this do actually look like once we are done with this project? Now, this is an example of what an end user can expect. He or she scans the parcel, get a confirmation by brand owner that the part is genuine. The brand owner can even provide additional documents to download, such as the authenticity certificate, the list of ingredients or raw material used. It can establish through the NFP, like I said before, a communication channel with the end user for additional after-sale program. From an ecosystem perspective, it also allows a different mapping. If an authenticity system is built, it can then further roll out additional gains in the fight against counterfeits. If we start connecting the dots, we can start detect unapproved shipments and build up maps of reputation. If the data is being shared in advance, this can be provided to customer authorities in their risk assessment analysis. And when a product starts to go in places they are not supposed to go, we could have a suspicious scan functionality to raise alerts. And having a series of those scans of a product registered on the blockchain then leads to new functionalities. For example, providing better insight at illicit trade routes and at product being counterfeited. So in a nutshell, to recap a bit, the project will leverage the IPO IP register on blockchain to use data sharing exchange. This can lead to issuance of IP certificate, which can be presented externally thanks to the EPC verifiable credential capability. And in a future, if we move a step further as a whole in the EU, this could lead to brand owner or even IP right holder representative to have a single entry point for all their IP rights under one IP wallet. Let me finish with where we are and what is the next over the next 12 months that we intend to achieve. So far, we have been very busy working on two fronts. On the solution itself, making sure that we use the best signature option available in terms of security, flexibility, and scalability. And as explained before, EPC and the verifiable credential allows us to do exactly that. And we are now very busy developing and tuning this further to the project needs, making sure that this can be leveraged not as a student validating a diploma, but as a brand owner validating your product. On the use case overall, and on the business part, we also have conducted additional study visits, boots on the ground, going to a production site, going to major port of Europe to discuss with brand owners on the distribution and to discuss with customer authorities on their needs. This provided us key insights on the challenge of this for this project, specifically on the serialization and the pre-arrival analysis. For the next step, the results of the activities carried out in 2022 will be reviewed early 2023, and a demonstration of product journey will be presented externally, publicly on May 31st. Please pencil this moment, which we will also use to define, together with the Blockathon forum, the requirement and end functionalities for the minimum viable product. From this moment on, we envisage to open up the collaboration to more stakeholders, which will eventually lead to the presentation of the end infrastructure by the end of the year. This will also be a moment where we will work in joint collaboration with existing system for brand owner to track and trace their product using blockchain solution before this solution is implemented. Our stakeholder engagement program is done through the Blockathon forum. Any brand owner, transport and logistic operator and custom authorities are, but also any future integrator or multiplier can join. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and our project team stands at your full disposal should you have any further question. Many thanks.
Thank you, Nicolas. That was very interesting. Again, I mean, this is something that we have been working, I mean, you have been working on for several years, and we have been working on several years on our side on EPC, and we finally see how it actually comes together, and we can leverage each other's initiatives in a very synergetic way, I hope. And I hope you can stay on a bit, Nicolas, because we will have a Q&A at the end, and there might be some questions in this area as well. But we should not waste more time before we go to our own Maxime Lem, who will now speak about EPC Early Adopter Program. Maxime, please.
Thanks a lot, Helen. Also, I wanted to let people know that I've been the one replying in the chat, so I won't reply while I'm talking. We do realize that there's been quite a lot of latency between what is shown on screen on our side and what you are getting to see. So we made some last-minute adjustments to those slides in between two presentations in order to try to have less content. The full version of the deck will be made available to you at the end when the recording is shared, okay? So you will get the full deck, but we tried to keep it a bit shorter to avoid to have so much delay between what I'll be saying and what you'll be seeing. So I'm Maxine. I work in the European Commission's DG Digit, which is the informatics department of the Commission. So I speak really purely from a implementer's perspective. DG Digit is the technology arm of the Commission, and we work in partnership with DG Connect, who have been, together with the member states, setting the tone and the strategy of the European blockchain services infrastructure. And one of our areas in which we've been working really hard is trying to create widespread adoption of what we've been building. So that is in part through what we call the early adopter program and through other types of outreach. And this is what I'll be talking to you about. But first, I wanted to jump to this next slide, which I hope will show on the screen for you soon. Because I wanted to take a second to re-explain the full verifiable credentials exchange framework. So you will not be seeing the slide straight away, I think. I personally don't see it in the stream right now. Is there a problem with the stream? I don't see the slide deck in the stream. Okay, so there's a bit of a delay, but that's okay. So I'll be explaining. So what you saw in Jan de Caju's presentation was one of the pilot projects that did a demo of an end-to-end cross-border exchange of verifiable credentials in the education domain. And this verifiable credentials paradigm for information sharing and decentralized verification relies on, there we go, it's online, relies on a combination of technologies and also a combination of actors. And I'm not sure that it's always clear to everyone where the trust comes from, so I'll be explaining it now. But first, I'll go over the sharing pattern again. So in a classical world, if I want to prove that I own a certain credential, an academic credential, I will be requesting my paper diploma from the university where I went to and then presenting it to whoever wants to check. Could be an employer, could be another university if I want to pursue education. And if they want to check the authenticity of this diploma, they would have to phone home. So they would have to call or contact in some way the original issuing university, or they would just have to trust without verifying. So in a new decentralized ecosystem that we're trying to stimulate here with EBSI, the new Web3 ecosystem, we're also trying to create decentralized architectures of verification and trust that don't rely on a specific platform centralization of data providing trust or a central registry, which would be the classic way of doing it in like governmental infrastructure, like the 19th century way of doing it. We're trying to create decentralized registries. So if I'm now in the new pattern trying to share some kind of claim about myself, like I do own a bachelor's degree from X university, what I will do using EBSI's verifiable credentials framework is request a verifiable credential that expresses this information from my university. My university will send me this verifiable credential that I get to store on my digital wallet. So this is custodian to me. I do not save this or store this on a ledger. It's on a wallet. I will talk about wallets more in a second. And then I present it together with a signature, a digital signature that's embedded inside the presentation to a verifier. And the verifier will not contact my university to check if it's true. What they will instead check is they will check if the university that has provided this credential is indeed accredited by a relevant body. It could be an educational ministry in their country or another institution that provides accreditations to educational bodies. And that accreditation is stored on EBSI Ledger. So there is no information about individuals on the EBSI Ledger, but there is an accreditation of specific entities that issue information. So what we're here, this kind of sharing paradigm relies on three main technologies, if you've been keeping track. It relies on a blockchain, of course. It's tamper evident, it's immutable. There was a question in the chat about whether you could correct information that was wrong on a blockchain. There are ways to revoke things, but it's a long technical conversation that we don't have time for today. We will publish a white paper on revocation next year. So we have the blockchain ledger, and that holds the information about the accreditations of universities, as well as who accredited them. So you can see the full chain of accreditation, And this kind of model is extremely flexible in the sense that it doesn't have to necessarily pertain to just higher education. It can pertain to any kind of certifications that can be expressed as a claim. I claim that I can drive. I claim that I have a Photoshop. I followed the Photoshop training course, So there's that accreditation chain on chain. There's the wallets, digital wallets that allow you to manage all of the accreditations that all the credentials that you receive, and then present them either standalone or combined together as compound claims to verification entities. So it can be an employer, it can be a government, it can be any entity that wants to check that what you're saying is true. The third technology is this format of information called verifiable credentials. And a verifiable credentials is just a new digital format for a document, like a PDF, but not a PDF. And there are three components to it. Metadata, which just tells us like when this was generated, when it will expire potentially. The claims, which are just attributes. So this diploma belongs to me. It is a bachelor's degree. It was sent to me by this university in this subject. So that's my claim. And finally, a signature, so a proof. And the proof just says, this credential belongs to me, Maxime. And I can digitally sign it with my public-private key pair that is managed by my wallet. So with all of this, you see that there are many parts in the ecosystem. And we need to make sure that this ecosystem thrives and is alive. So can we go to the next slide already, because it will take a second. And we need to make sure that this ecosystem thrives and is alive. We based our standards for verifiable credentials exchange on W3C. Obviously, it's not the only use case that we're working on, but it's the one for which our specifications are stable and are live, available online. And we need to make sure that we can stimulate and incentivize the creation of supply of credentials, issuers, of verifiers, but here the demand, that's the demand. So they need to have the technology to check. They need to understand how to check that a credential is valid. We need to make sure that there are wallets that users can choose from. So for example, a student would have a choice of wallet that they can use in order to store and send their credentials. So how do we do that? And we have this mix of a bottom-up and a top-down approach. So bottom-up is essentially everything I've been describing. And it's the key tenet of it is our early adopter program. So I'll explain that in a second. Top down, we do a lot of communication outreach efforts. You've been seeing us share our website a lot on the chat. We have a social media presence. I will be sharing all of those links afterward. We're present at events like these, other industry events. We try to also have online tools available. But bottom up, we try to support the ecosystem. And a lot of our activities focus on trying to focus on these three pillars, supply, demand, and then the technical layer that enables the exchange of everything. So for that, we have a mix of things. We have an early adopter incubation program that allows for early testing and beta users to try and either grow their capabilities to be able to issue a verifiable credential, to be able to verify a verifiable credential. And what we do is we try to match supply and demand across countries in successful pilot projects so that essentially both on the supply side and the demand side, everyone can build what they need to build in order to be able to communicate with each other alongside the EPSI specifications. We also try to make sure that there are wallets. So how we do this is we have a wallet conformance testing service that is available online freely, and all it does is test the conformance of a digital application with our verifiable credential specifications. And that allows these wallets to also advertise the fact that they're able to express information in an EPSI compliant way. We also, of course, and this has been mentioned in the chat, have grants that are part of the Digital Europe program. There is a grant call currently ongoing. The deadline is January 2023. Don't remember exactly which date, called Skills, right? Am I correct, Pierre?
Yes, this one is not strictly related to the EPSI. Is more to support the development of digital skills for key technology, including blockchain. But as part of this call, there is a strong invitation also to the university, or higher education institution, to think about how to propose advanced system in order to facilitate the management of the diploma or skills or transcript or whatever is whatever credential is required in the education context. And as part of those advanced EPSI project is not imposed, but it can be one of the opportunity. And just before this call, which is now open, we have had also this year a call for proposal, which concern in particular the EPSI, and several projects has been selected as part of the evaluation process. And following the negotiation for the grant, they will start in a few months, we hope as early as possible in 2023, and they will contribute to the early adopter program and further implementation into production of the EPSI and its use case.
Thanks a lot, Pierre. So for those of you who might be eligible, of course, this is something you can look into because, like mentioned, this framework for exchanging information and verifying it can be applied beyond just higher education. It can be applied to lifelong learning. It's something that we're actively working on, and we're looking forward to also grantees picking up this part of, the full picture of skills in Europe. We also organize the participative events and pre-commercial procurement to support innovation. And what I wanted to highlight is that currently there are already 15, if you count the ones who are conformant with V1 of conformance testing, who are in the process of getting conformant for V2 wallets for holders. We are extending our conformance testing suite to also include the applications that issuers will use, verifiers will use. You will see all of this in the next year. And if we can go to the next slide, even though it won't appear immediately, we are also collecting a database of universities that want to participate in our next early adopter program. It's an incubator program, and the results of it, of the last phase of it, you've actually seen. One of the successful pilots was here today presenting. It was the KU Leuven, Europa pilot that you saw with the end-to-end exchange of transcript records. And we're doing this again, so we are recruiting as many universities across Europe as possible. We have the ambitious goal of having at least 200 universities by the end of the year who are at some level able to exchange verifiable credentials, either in test or in production, and just give them to their and issue them to their students. So we have 70 universities currently signed up in our early adopter program. If one of you here present today is representing an educational institution, please do sign up. There is still time on our website. And the link will be shared at epsi.eu in the chat. And we are also from 19 different countries, so we're hoping to fill the entire map of Europe, but we're already very happy with this. So the goal is to take these universities and next year go through an entire journey with them to help them develop their issuance capacity. If there are no issuers, there is no exchange, so they're particularly important to us, but we also need verifiers, we also need students, and obviously, aside from the wallets we currently have, if more wallets want to come in and also test out conformance testing, not just for the holder, but also for the capacities that are required from issuers, we would be very, very grateful. So on the next slide then, I would also like to highlight that we are collaborating with a lot of initiatives. So we're not just working with the ecosystem at European level, at national level. We're also collaborating with initiatives that are within the European Union in order to make sure that the data models that we publish are in line with what other initiatives that are concerned with education are doing. Obviously, we're working with our colleagues from the European Union Intellectual Property Office in order to develop our traceability capabilities. We are keeping in close collaboration with the next EIDAS the working group in order to make sure that what we produce is not in contradiction with what they produce. We are working with our colleagues working on social security. We have an active pilot with them that reuses verifiable credentials. We're collaborating with a number of international initiatives as well. And all of the ones that are highlighted in blue on this slide are the ones that we have an active collaboration with. The ones in white, and this is a non-exclusive list, are the ones that we are in conversations with but don't have an active partnership. There are many more. The point is, when it comes to the self-sovereign information sharing space and more broadly the Web3 innovation space, we want to make sure that we're not producing things that are not going to be used. So we want to keep working in collaboration with both, let's say, the grassroots ecosystem and also other initiatives that are working on these questions. So I will end on the last slide, which you will see in a second, to just say that we have a pretty broad and growing online presence, and that everything that we do is public. So everything I've discussed, our specs, the tools and services that I've mentioned, everything is on our website, epsi.eu. The early adopter program registration is completely open to everyone. Anyone from the public can come in. Anyone who has a cool pilot idea, we welcome the suggestions. Obviously, I can't say that we work on everything, but we will certainly take it on board. And you can follow us on social media as well. We're present on LinkedIn, on Twitter. We intend on being present on Mastodon as well. So we'll be somewhere where you can find us, sign up for our newsletter. And yes, we're looking forward to everything that you have to contribute to our initiative. And this is where I'll stop because I'm already running over time.
No, thanks, Maxime. Just to add about what you said on the partnership, and first, it's not only about what concerns the self-sovereign identity aspect. Other potential partners, consortium, are interested by other aspects of the EPSI. Just something to note is that we have had last week a discussion with the European Blockchain Technical Group, and it was witnesses that what we are doing now in this EPSI initiative is taken into account by industry players. I think it was in the case of Gaia X, where the type of the way we operate the verifiable credential in particular is something that they are looking very closely, and they are inspired by what we are doing in EPSI. So it's not something so usual to see the industry inspired by a public-driven initiative, but it is something to note. Another element that I would like to bring at the end of this presentation is the system to exchange a diploma through the verifiable credential and through this wallet. I mean, we have some experience also from University of Lille, which is one of the actors that we have in our ecosystem, which indicates that they have been able to reduce by 4 or 5 the cost to issue a diploma in comparison to the normal, to the traditional system. Of course, it's much more sustainable because you have no more paper which can be used. I mean, you can do both, but it's not strictly needed to continue to print diploma on paper. And then in terms of a verification process to facilitate let's say, the injection of information before to admit a student in the university, it is reduced from 3 days of verification to something which can be done in almost instantaneously. So just those last remarks to highlight the fact that we are not just playing with blockchain, but as I said at the beginning, we want to provide enhanced services for the citizen and the organization. So that's where I would like to conclude the session today for what concerns EPSI. Hélène.
I think we're coming towards an end, and I really like this these last pieces here. I think we really put the point on how important we think that is that technology is working for to solve real problems. It's not a technology just looking for a problem, but we are really focusing on the problems and how can technology such as blockchain provide solutions. And that was one of the points, and we have showed with a couple of use cases that here really are looking at really important areas where we have problems where this technology could play an important role to alleviate those. And the other point is like what we have mentioned many times during the presentations about the ecosystem. We see how important it is to build these ecosystems. It's a large amount of stakeholders involved in all these different use cases, and it is important to be able to support these ecosystems to grow. And I think also that's why we have the EU policy as such, is to promote and support the strengths of the European ecosystem in blockchain. But I do not think that actually we have a lot more time, and I have looked through the Q&As, and I think we actually answered all the questions thanks to Maxime and others who were very busy answering the questions at the same time. I don't really see any questions that we left, but if you have any further, obviously you can just contact us and send them to Connect University, and we will follow up after the session as well. I would like to finish by thanking everyone that contributed to the program, the whole team that sat up in this in very short time, Alessandro and the team behind the mirrors down there, Maxime, Pierre, and all the speakers, also Ellen and Jean de Cajou, Caroline and Nicolas, who is probably still online. But please, thank you very much, and I hope we give you some interesting food for thought for Christmas vacation. Thank you.